Billionaire handed out his card to everyone. But what the cleaner bought moved him deeply. Richard Harrison watched the employees rushing back and forth in the Harrison Investments office in New York City. The end-of-year party was coming to a close, but the excitement still filled everyone present. In his hands he held a golden box with dozens of unlimited credit cards, his way of thanking the team for a year of hard work. That's when his gaze met Deborah Williams, who kept cleaning the tables even after he had announced that every employee would receive a card for 24 hours. The dark-skinned woman with her hair tied in a bun was 38 years old and had worked at the company for 15 years, always discreet, always dedicated. "Deborah," called Richard, approaching with the golden card in his hand. "You're also entitled to the gift." The cleaner looked up from her cleaning cloth, surprised. Her hands trembled slightly as she accepted the card. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," she murmured, tucking the card into the pocket of her navy blue uniform. "But I still have work to finish." The other employees stopped to watch the scene. While the secretary Amanda was already planning to buy a designer purse, and the accountant Mike talked about trading in his car, Deborah went back to cleaning the tables as if nothing had happened. "Deborah, you didn't understand," insisted Richard. "It's a card with no limit. You can buy anything you want in the next 24 hours. "I understand, sir. Thank you very much," she replied without stopping her work. The human resources manager, Jennifer, approached laughing. "Richard, leave her be. You know how people like that are. They have no ambition. She probably doesn't even know what to do with so much money." Deborah pretended not to hear, but her hands gripped the cloth more tightly. Richard noticed the tension in her shoulders and felt a discomfort he couldn't explain. 2 hours later, when the building was already empty, Deborah finally finished her work. She took 2 buses to reach the small 2-room apartment in the South Bronx, on the south side of New York City. The neighborhood was noisy, but she was used to it. As she opened the door, silence greeted her like a slap. Her daughter Emma's room had been empty for 3 months. On the dresser were still the drawings the 7-year-old girl had made before being admitted to City General Hospital. Little paper dolls, colorful flowers, and in the middle of them all a drawing of a pink bicycle with a smiling girl on it. Deborah sat on her daughter's bed and took the card out of her pocket. The golden plastic reflected the dim light of the lamp. Emma had been hospitalized for a long time with a rare illness that doctors were still trying to fully understand. The company's basic health insurance covered the treatment, but not the experimental procedures that could make a difference. "My princess," whispered Deborah, stroking the drawing of the bicycle, "Mommy is going to give you the gift you've always wanted." The next day, while her co-workers showed off their expensive purchases at the office, Deborah took a bus to a used bicycle shop in Chinatown. Among dozens of models, she found a small pink bicycle with some signs of wear but well maintained. "How much is this one?" she asked the seller. "That one is $180, but for you I'll do $150, replied the man, noticing her cleaner's uniform. Deborah shook her head. "No discount needed. It's worth the full $180. The seller was surprised but accepted the payment. Deborah swiped the golden card and the transaction was approved instantly. She asked for the bicycle to be carefully wrapped and took a taxi to the hospital, a luxury she allowed herself only that day. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, in the office of Harrison Investments, Richard was in his room reviewing reports when he received a notification on his phone. It was the bank app informing him about the transactions on the cards he had loaned out. Amanda had spent $8,000 on a purse. Mike had bought a $15,000 watch. Other employees had made purchases ranging from $1,000 to $20,000. But one transaction caught his attention. Deborah Williams, $180, Bob's Bikes. Richard blinked several times, thinking he had misread. He opened the app again and checked. There was no mistake. Amid all those transactions of thousands of dollars, Deborah had spent only $180 on a bicycle. "This doesn't make sense," he murmured to himself. He called the security department and asked them to check if there was any problem with Deborah's card. The answer came in a few minutes. The card was working perfectly, and only that single transaction had been recorded. Curiosity consumed him for the rest of the day. During the meeting with Japanese investors, he thought about the bicycle. During dinner at the city's most expensive French restaurant, he wondered why someone would spend only $180 when they could have anything. The next morning, he found an envelope on his desk. Inside, Deborah's gold card accompanied by a handwritten note. "Mr. Harrison, thank you so much for the opportunity. You have always been fair with me, and I couldn't take advantage of your kindness by buying things I don't need. May God bless you and your family. Deborah." Richard stared at the note for several minutes. None of the other employees had returned the card voluntarily. In fact, some had asked for an extension. "Jennifer," he called the HR manager, "I need some information about Deborah." "Is there a problem, Richard? Did she do something foolish?" "No, on the contrary. I want to know more about her situation." Jennifer came back with a thin folder. Deborah's record was impeccable. 15 years without a single unexcused absence, no complaints, no problems. But there was something else. "She has a daughter," said Jennifer. "She's always asking to swap shifts when the girl gets sick." "How often does that happen?" "Lately, almost every week. It must be something serious because she never complains about the pay deductions." Richard felt a tightness in his chest. He decided to investigate on his own. That afternoon, instead of going home, he drove to Deborah's address listed in the file. The South Bronx was a world completely different from his. The narrow streets, the constant noise, the smell of food mixed with pollution. He parked the Cadillac in front of a small building and went up to the second floor. He knocked on the door, but no one answered. A neighbor appeared at the window. "If you're looking for Deborah, she's not here. This time of day, she's at the hospital with the girl." "Hospital?" asked Richard. "Oh, you don't know. Emma has been hospitalized for months. Poor Deborah, she's always running between work and the hospital." Richard felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Deborah had worked for him for 15 years, and he didn't know she was going through this. He drove to City General Hospital, following the information he got from the neighbor. The public hospital was full, with people waiting in plastic chairs along the corridors. He asked at the reception about Emma Williams and was directed to the 4th floor, pediatric wing. As he went up, he heard a familiar voice talking to someone in the hallway. It was Deborah speaking with a nurse. "Please, just a few minutes," she was pleading. "I brought a surprise for her." "Mrs. Williams, I've already explained. The girl is resting and cannot have visitors outside of visiting hours. But it's just for her to see through the window. I won't go into the room." Richard hid behind a pillar and watched the scene. Deborah was assembling a small pink bicycle in the hospital corridor. Her hands worked carefully, adjusting every screw, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. The head nurse approached with a stern face. "What is this? You can't assemble a bicycle in the hospital corridor." "Please, Mrs. Nancy," begged Deborah. "It's just for my daughter to see. She always dreamed of having a pink bicycle. If she sees it through the window, it might lift her spirits." "That's against the rules. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." At that moment, Richard saw Deborah as he had never seen her before. She was no longer the quiet cleaner who tidied his office. She was a desperate mother, fighting to bring a little joy to her sick daughter with the only $180 she had allowed herself to spend. He slowly approached. "Excuse me," he said, taking his wallet out of his pocket. "I'm Richard Harrison. Can I help with something?" Deborah turned around and went pale when she saw her boss. "Mr. Harrison? What are you doing here?" "I came looking for you. I received your note." The head nurse recognized the name and completely changed her tone. "Mr. Harrison, it's a pleasure. You made a very generous donation to the hospital last year." Richard nodded, but kept his focus on Deborah. "Can you give us a few minutes, please? And about the bicycle, I think we can make an exception." The nurse quickly left, leaving them alone. Deborah was trembling. "I can explain, Mr. Harrison. I didn't say anything about Emma because—" "You don't need to explain anything," he interrupted. "I'm the one who needs to apologize." Deborah looked at him confused. "Apologize? Why?" "For being so blind. 15 years, Deborah. 15 years you've worked for me, and I never knew what you were going through." At that moment, a doctor came out of the room and approached them. "Mrs. Williams, Emma is awake and asking for you." Richard saw Deborah's eyes light up. Dr. Sarah, can I show her the bicycle? Just through the window? The doctor looked at Richard, who nodded in approval. Of course, in fact, anything that might cheer up Emma is welcome. She's been very down lately. Deborah pushed the bicycle to the room's window. Richard followed her, and for the first time saw Emma. She was a small girl for her age, with the fair skin of her paternal grandmother and her mother's large eyes. She was surrounded by tubes and machines, but when she saw the pink bicycle, her face transformed. "Mommy," she shouted, tapping her hand on the window, "it's the bicycle I drew." Deborah began to cry, but they were tears of joy. "Yes, it is, my princess. When you get out of here, we'll learn to ride it together." "Promise, Mommy." "I promise." Richard watched the scene with a lump in his throat. Through the window, he saw Emma trying to sit up in bed, more animated than she had probably been in months. Dr. Sarah noticed it too. "Interesting," she murmured. "Her vital signs have improved significantly. I haven't seen her this responsive in months." Richard stepped aside and called the doctor for a private word. "Doctor, what exactly is the girl's diagnosis?" "It's complicated. Emma has a rare autoimmune disease that affects multiple organs. We're managing the symptoms, but there is an experimental treatment in Europe that could make all the difference." "Why isn't she getting that treatment?" The doctor hesitated. "Well, it's a financial matter. The procedure costs about $800,000, plus travel and accommodation costs. The basic health plan doesn't cover experimental treatments abroad." Richard felt the world spin. $800,000. To him, it was the price of a good car. To Deborah, it was impossible. "Do you think this treatment would work?" "There's an 85% chance of complete recovery, but understand, Mr. Harrison, Mrs. Williams is already doing the impossible. She works 3 different jobs to save money. At the current rate, it would take about 20 years to get the full amount." 20 years? Emma didn't have 20 years. Richard went back to where Deborah was. She was still talking to her daughter through the window, making up stories about all the adventures they would have with the pink bicycle. "Deborah," he said softly, "I need to talk to you." She approached, wiping away her tears. "Thank you for not reporting me, Mr. Harrison. I know I shouldn't be here during work hours." "Forget about work for a minute. Tell me about Emma." Deborah took a deep breath and told the whole story. The beginning of the symptoms 2 years ago, the back and forth to the hospital, the inconclusive tests, the diagnosis that came like a bolt of lightning. She told him about the 3 jobs: cleaning lady at his company during the day, housekeeper at 2 homes at night, and selling brigadeiros on weekends. "I know it seems like very little, but every month I manage to save about $200. In a few years, maybe I'll have enough to—" "Deborah," Richard interrupted, "I want to help." She shook her head immediately. "No, Mr. Harrison, I appreciate it, but I can't accept." "Why not?" "Because it would be taking advantage of your kindness. You've already given me work and dignity for 15 years. I can't ask for more than that." Richard was frustrated. How could she be so stubborn in a desperate situation? "Deborah, you're being too proud. Your daughter needs urgent treatment." "And she will get it," she replied firmly, "the right way, by working and earning every penny." "In 20 years. The doctor told me it would take 20 years. Deborah paled. She didn't know Richard had spoken with Dr. Sarah. "The doctor said that?" "She did. And she also told me about the experimental treatment. An 85% chance of a cure, Deborah. 85%. Deborah's legs weakened. Richard held her by the arm. "So, 20 years?" "If nothing changes, yes." A heavy silence fell between them. Through the window, Emma continued to admire the pink bicycle, unaware of the adults' conversation. "Let me help you," Richard insisted. "I can transfer the money today." "No," she said, but her voice was less firm. "Why not?" Because I need to deserve it. If I accept it just like that for free, what kind of example am I setting for my daughter?" Richard took a deep breath. He was dealing with the most principled person he had ever known, but also the most stubborn. "All right," he said finally, "then you're going to deserve it." "What do you mean?" "You're fired." Deborah looked at him as if he had gone mad. "What?" "You're fired, effective immediately." Why, what did I do? Nothing. But if you're unemployed, maybe you'll accept my help. Mr. Harrison, you can't do this. I have 15 years with the company. I need this job. Then accept my help for Emma. This is blackmail. Yes. So what? Deborah stared at him for a few seconds, then started to laugh. A nervous laugh, almost hysterical. You're crazy. I am. Crazy to help you, and you won't accept it. Fine, she said, stopping her laughter. Fire me then, but I still won't accept your money. Richard didn't expect that response. Deborah took the bicycle and said goodbye to her daughter through the window. Mommy will be back tomorrow, my princess, and I'll find a way to make you better soon. She left the hospital, pushing the bicycle, leaving Richard standing in the hallway. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like, and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The next morning, Richard arrived at the office expecting to find Deborah remorseful, ready to accept his help. Instead, he found Jennifer agitated in his office. Richard, you need to fix this. Deborah is telling everyone that you fired her without cause. She's right, that's exactly what I did. What do you mean, why? Richard told the whole story to Jennifer, who listened with her mouth open. You've completely lost your mind, she said when he finished. The woman doesn't want your help, Richard, accept that. I can't accept it, not when I know her daughter might. His secretary Amanda appeared at the door. Mr. Harrison, there's a Deborah Williams downstairs. Says she wants to return a bicycle. Richard rushed downstairs. Deborah was at reception with the pink bicycle beside her. What are you doing here? I came to return this, she said, pointing to the bicycle. I bought it with the company card. Since I was fired, I have no right to it. Deborah, that's ridiculous. It's the right thing to do. The employees began gathering around, curious. Richard realized they were becoming a spectacle. Let's talk in my office. No need. I just came to return it and leave. Deborah, please. She shook her head and pushed the bicycle toward him. Take good care of it. When I can buy another one, this time it'll be with my own money. And she left, leaving Richard holding a pink bicycle in the middle of reception, under the curious gaze of all the employees. Jennifer approached. Richard, this has become a circus. Fix this situation now. But the situation was far from resolved. That afternoon, Richard discovered Deborah had already found another job. In just one day, she was hired as a cleaner at a shopping center downtown. How did she get a job so fast? He asked Jennifer. 15 years of experience, Richard, and an impeccable recommendation from our company, considering she never did anything wrong. Richard felt even more frustrated. His plan had completely failed. In the following days, he tried several approaches. He mailed a check. It was returned uncashed. He tried to make a bank transfer. Deborah changed her account. He even went to the mall where she worked, but security was instructed not to let him upstairs. Meanwhile, news of his unfair dismissal began to spread. First it was the company employees, then family members, then friends of family members. Within a week, half of New York City was talking about the billionaire who fired a mother with a sick daughter. Social media caught fire. Justice for Deborah became a trending topic. Influencers began talking about the case. The local newspaper ran a story. Richard's company began losing clients. The Japanese investor who had closed a $1 million contract called personally. Mr. Harrison, we have some concerns about your company's reputation. Our shareholders are questioning whether we should maintain business with someone who... Who what? Asked Richard, though he knew the answer. Who fires an exemplary employee for no apparent reason, especially a single mother with family problems. Richard had to call an emergency meeting with the entire board. The numbers didn't lie. In 2 weeks, the company had lost 30% of its contracts. Richard, you need to fix this, said the senior partner. Rehire the woman, make a public apology, anything. It's not that simple. Why not? Richard couldn't explain that he had fired Deborah to force her to accept help. It would sound even worse. It was then that he received an unexpected call. It was Deborah. Mr. Harrison, I need to speak with you. Of course. Where do you want to meet? At the hospital. It's about Emma. Richard drove there faster than he should have. He found Deborah in the hallway, but she seemed different, calmer, more determined. Did something happen to Emma? No, she's the same. But something happened to me. What? I saw it online. What people are saying about you. Richard sighed. Deborah, I can explain. You don't need to explain. I know why you fired me. You do? Yes. You wanted to help me, and I wouldn't let you. So you got angry and decided to force my hand. Richard couldn't deny it. But you didn't understand one thing, she continued. My refusing your help doesn't mean I'm not grateful. It means I have principles. I know, Deborah, and that's why I admire you. Then why are you letting people speak badly of you because of me? Because I deserve it. I truly acted wrongly. Deborah shook her head. No, you acted like someone who cares. The wrong way, but you care. And now I'm going to give an interview. What do you mean? The TV people want to talk to me. I'm going to tell the truth. That you fired me because you wanted to help me and I wouldn't let you. Deborah, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do. You're a good boss, Mr. Harrison. In 15 years, you never disrespected me. You were never unfair. I won't let people think you're a bad person just because I'm stubborn. Richard felt his eyes well up. Thank you, Deborah. But there's one condition. What? Rehire me. Not because I need the money, I already found another job, but because I like working at your company. Of course, you're rehired. With a promotion. Richard blinked, surprised. A promotion? Yes. Cleaning supervisor. With a raise. Deborah, are you negotiating with me? Yes, I am. You taught me that sometimes we need to be clever to get what we want. Richard laughed for the first time in weeks. All right. Cleaning supervisor with a raise. Thank you, Mr. Harrison. They shook hands, but Richard still had one doubt. Deborah, about Emma's treatment, I'll figure it out. How? I'll work more. I'll find other side jobs. I'll sell fudge in traffic if I have to. In 20 years. In 20 years. Richard nodded, respecting her decision. But inside, he kept planning. Deborah's interview aired on the highest-rated TV show. She told the whole truth, that Richard had fired her to try to help her, that she had refused because she wanted to keep her dignity, that he was a good boss who genuinely cared about his employees. Public opinion changed overnight. Thank you, Richard became a trending topic. The company recovered the lost contracts and even gained new clients impressed by the story. But the one who was most impressed was Lily, Richard's daughter. Lily Harrison was 8 years old and used to getting everything she wanted. When she saw Deborah's interview talking about her sick daughter, she got curious. Daddy, why don't you help Mrs. Williams' daughter? She asked during dinner. I tried, Lily, but she won't accept. Why? Because she has pride. Is pride bad? Richard thought about his answer. No, honey, pride can be a good thing when it means a person wants to achieve things through their own effort. Can I meet the girl? Why? I just want to meet her. Richard initially hesitated, but ended up agreeing. The following Saturday, he took Lily to the hospital. Deborah was there, as always, talking to Emma through the window. Mrs. Williams, Lily called. Can I meet your daughter? Deborah was surprised to see the little blonde girl, but soon smiled. Of course, dear. Emma, come here to see Mr. Harrison's daughter. The two girls looked at each other through the window. Emma, despite her illness, smiled shyly. Hi, said Lily. Is your name Emma? Yes. And yours? Lily. Do you like bicycles? I do. My mother bought a rose for me. When I get better, I'll learn how to ride. I can teach you. I already know how to ride without training wheels. Emma's eyes lit up. Really? Really? Can we be friends? Yes. From that day on, Lily insisted on visiting Emma every Saturday. Richard would take her, and the two girls would talk through the hospital window. Lily would talk about school, about toys, about outings. Emma talked about the drawings she made, about the books her mother read to her, about her dreams of riding a bicycle. Their friendship changed Lily completely. The girl who used to cry over any toy she didn't get immediately now constantly asked about Emma. "Daddy, why do I have so many toys and Emma doesn't have any?" she asked one day. "Because we have more money, sweetie." "Is that fair?" "Life isn't always fair, Mel. So can we make it more fair?" Richard smiled at his daughter's innocence. "What do you mean? Can I give some of my toys to Emma?" "Of course you can." The following Saturday, Lily arrived at the hospital with a suitcase full of toys, dolls, coloring books, games, stuffed animals. Deborah was taken aback. "Lily, sweetheart, this is too much." "It's a gift," the girl insisted. "Friends give gifts to friends." Emma was overjoyed. For the first time in months, Richard saw her truly excited. "Thank you, Lily," she shouted through the window. "You're the best friend in the world." The doctor, Dr. Sarah, later commented to Deborah about the improvement in Emma's spirits. "This friendship is doing her a world of good. Her psychological state is fundamental to her treatment." "Lily is an angel," Deborah agreed. "Sometimes I think Emma is happier on Saturday when she comes than on any other day." But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Richard's wife, Catherine, did not like the hospital visits one bit. "Richard, this has gone too far," she complained one evening. "Lily is becoming obsessed with that girl." "Obsessed how?" "She only talks about Emma. She wants to give away half her toys. She wants us to move to be near the hospital. She wants to know why we can't pay for the girl's treatment." "And what's the problem with that?" "The problem is she's a child. She shouldn't be worried about these things. Catherine, she's learning compassion. Isn't that what we want to teach our daughter?" "I want to teach social responsibility, not guilt for having money." The argument continued for several nights. Catherine forbade the hospital visits, but Lily would cry so much that Richard ended up taking her in secret. It was during one of these secret visits that Lily asked a question that changed everything. "Daddy, how much does it cost for Emma to get better? Why do you want to know?" "I just want to know." Richard hesitated but decided to be honest. "A lot of money, sweetie. More than $500,000. Lily grew thoughtful. "And do we have that money?" "We do." "Then why don't we give it to Mrs. Williams?" "Because she won't accept it." "But what if we didn't give it to her?" "What do you mean? What if we gave it straight to the hospital?" Richard stopped walking. "Lily, what are you thinking? Can I have an auction for my toys to help Emma?" "Sweetheart, your toys aren't worth that much money." "Then what is?" Richard looked at his daughter and saw a determination he had never noticed before. "Why do you want to do this?" "Because Emma is my friend, and friends help friends." That night, Richard talked to Catherine about Lily's idea. "You're not going to encourage this," she said categorically. "Why not?" "Because it's not her responsibility. She's 8 years old, Richard." "So what? She wants to help her friend. She wants to feel important. It's different. You're being very harsh." "I'm being realistic. In a week, she'll have forgotten about Emma and will want her toys back." Richard didn't agree, but promised to think about it. The next day, however, Lily took the initiative. When Richard came home from work, he found his daughter organizing all her toys in the living room. "What's this, Lily?" "I'm separating what I'm going to sell at the auction." "Lily, we haven't decided yet." "I decided. I'm selling everything to help Emma." "Everything?" "Almost everything. I'm keeping only the doll Grandma gave me." Richard sat on the floor next to his daughter. "Lily, are you sure about this?" "I am." "Daddy, Emma never had a doll. I have 15. That's not fair." "What if you regret it later?" "I won't regret it. But if I do regret it, I'll work to buy others." Richard smiled. His daughter had inherited his determination and Deborah's stubbornness. "All right, let's do this auction." Catherine was furious when she found out, but Richard convinced her it would be a good lesson for Lily. The auction was organized right in their building. The neighbors, touched by the story, showed up in full force. Lily explained to each person why she was selling the toys, and many ended up paying well above the actual value of the items. A remote control car that cost $50 sold for $500. A doll worth $30 went for $300. A board game priced at $80 sold for $800. By the end of the day, Lily had raised $15,000. "Daddy!" she shouted, euphoric. "$15,000! How much more do we need for Emma to get better?" Richard did the math. We still need $785,000, honey. Lily's smile faded a little, but she didn't get discouraged. Then I'll sell more things. What other things? I don't know yet, but I'll think of something. The story of Lily's auction spread quickly. A local TV station did a story on the 8-year-old girl who was selling her toys to help her sick friend. The impact was immediate. People from all over the city began looking for ways to help. An online fundraiser was created and within hours had already raised $50,000. Richard watched everything with a heavy heart. People were doing what he had wanted to do for months, but what Deborah wouldn't allow. "And now?" he asked Catherine. "Deborah can't refuse help from hundreds of people." "Yes, she can," replied his wife, "and she probably will refuse." Catherine was right. When Deborah found out about the fundraiser, she asked for it to be cancelled. "I didn't ask anyone for help," she said in a new interview. "I thank you from the bottom of my heart, but I cannot accept." "But Mrs. Williams," insisted the reporter, "these are people who want to help spontaneously. And I am very grateful, but Emma is my responsibility." Deborah's decision generated even more controversy. Some called her too proud, others a heroine of dignity. Social media was divided between respect Deborah and accept help Deborah. Lily was devastated when she learned that Deborah had refused the money. "But Daddy, why doesn't she want Emma to get better?" "She does, honey. But she wants to get the money her own way. By working. By working. In 20 years. In 20 years. Lily was quiet for a while, then asked, "Daddy, will Emma live 20 years?" The question hit Richard like a bullet. He had never thought about it so directly. I don't know, honey. Then we need to help faster." "How?" "By giving Mrs. Williams work." Richard looked at her, not understanding. "What do you mean?" "If she wants to earn the money by working, we give her more work so she can earn more money." "Lily, it doesn't work like that. She already works as much as she can." "Then we find her a job that pays more." Richard stopped to think. The idea was simple, but it might work. "Lily, you're a genius." The next day, Richard called Deborah for a talk. "Deborah, I have a proposal for you." "What kind of offer?" "A promotion, not for cleaning supervisor, but for administrative assistant." Deborah looked at him suspiciously. "Mr. Harrison, I don't know anything about administration. But you can learn. You're smart, dedicated, responsible. Those are the qualities I look for in an assistant." "And what would the salary be?" Richard did the math in his head. If he paid a high enough salary, Deborah could save the money in much less time. $10,000 a month. Deborah nearly fell off her chair. $10,000? Mr. Harrison, that's 5 times what I make. It's the fair salary for the position. But I don't know how to do office work. You'll learn. You'll start with simple tasks and progress. Deborah stayed silent for several minutes. "It's because of Emma, isn't it?" Richard couldn't lie. "Partly, yes." "So it's disguised charity?" "No, Deborah. It's a real opportunity. If you do a good job, you can grow in the company. If you don't, you'll be fired like any other employee." "Do you swear it's not just pity for me?" "I swear. You have qualities that I value. You just never had the chance to show them." Deborah thought for a few more minutes. "All right, I accept, but on one condition." "What?" "If I can't do a good job, you fire me without mercy. I don't want to stay somewhere just out of pity." Agreed. And so Deborah began her new role. The first few days were difficult. She had never used a computer professionally, didn't understand the technical terms, felt lost amidst so much information. But she had something many employees didn't: determination. She arrived an hour early to practice on the computer. She took work home. She asked questions until she completely understood each task. In 2 weeks, Jennifer came to speak with Richard. "I don't know what you did, but Deborah is adapting surprisingly well." "Really?" "She learns quickly and doesn't make the same mistakes twice. Besides, she's finding problems in the reports that no one had noticed before." "What kind of problems?" "Discrepancies in data, poorly reviewed contracts, missed deadlines. It seems she sees details that go unnoticed by others." Richard smiled. Deborah was proving she deserved the opportunity. With the new salary, Deborah could save $8,000 a month for Emma's treatment. Instead of 20 years, she would need only 8 years to save the necessary money. But 8 years was still a lot for a sick child. It was then that something unexpected happened. A European biotechnology company contacted City General Hospital. They were looking for patients with Emma's rare disease to participate in a clinical trial program. Dr. Sarah called Deborah with the news. "Mrs. Williams, we have a unique opportunity. A company is offering free experimental treatment for 10 children with Emma's diagnosis." Free? Completely free. They pay all costs, including travel and lodging in Europe. And what's the catch? There is no catch. It's a real opportunity. But there's a waiting list, and we need documents proving the family's financial situation. Deborah felt a mix of hope and fear. What are Emma's chances of being selected? Hard to say, but I'll do my best to get her prioritized. Deborah told Richard about the opportunity. He was ecstatic. "This is incredible, Deborah. It's the chance Emma needed." "If she's selected," Deborah reminded him, "she will be. I'm sure." 2 weeks later, the answer came. Emma had been accepted into the program. The treatment would start in a month. Deborah cried like she had never cried in her life. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. "My princess is going to be okay," she repeated, hugging her daughter. "She'll be fine." The farewell at the airport was emotional. Lily cried as she said goodbye to her friend. "Promise you'll come back cured?" she asked, holding Emma's hand. "I promise." "And when I come back, will you teach me how to ride a bike?" "I will. And we'll go to the park every day." Richard was also emotional. In 6 months, that family had completely changed his life. "Deborah," he said, "when you return, your job will be waiting for you." "Thank you, Mr. Harrison, for everything." "I'm the one who should thank you. You taught me so much about dignity and perseverance." Emma's treatment lasted 3 months. Deborah sent news weekly. The girl was responding well. The doctors were optimistic. The tests showed significant improvement. Lily counted the days until her friend's return. She had kept the pink bicycle in her room, waiting for the moment to teach Emma how to ride. Richard used this time to reflect on everything that had happened. Deborah's stubbornness had irritated him at first, but now he understood. She hadn't refused his help out of pride, but out of principle. She wanted to teach her daughter that the good things in life must be earned with honesty and hard work. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. When Deborah and Emma returned from Europe, they were welcomed as heroes at the airport. The media had followed the case, and dozens of people were there to welcome them. Emma was unrecognizable, rosy-cheeked, excited, full of energy. The treatment had been a complete success. "Lily!" she shouted when she saw her friend. "I'm back, and I'm cured!" The two girls hugged as if they hadn't seen each other for years. "I brought the bicycle," said Lily. "Shall we learn to ride now?" "Let's!" That same day, in the park near the hospital, where Emma had spent so many months admitted, the two girls rode together for the first time. Emma was still unsure, but Lily held her and encouraged her. "Go, Emma, you can do it." "I'm afraid of falling." Everyone falls at first, but we get up and try again. Richard and Deborah watched from a distance, moved. "Thank you," Deborah said suddenly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, for insisting on helping me, even when I wouldn't let you." "You taught me that there are different ways to help," replied Richard. "Sometimes the best help is giving the person the opportunity to show what they're capable of. And sometimes the best help is not taking no for an answer." They laughed together. "Deborah, can I ask you a question?" "Go ahead." "Why did you really refuse my help at first?" Deborah thought before answering. "Because I didn't want Emma to grow up thinking life is easy. I wanted her to know that everything has a price, and that price must be paid with honesty. And if time had run out, if she hadn't gotten the free treatment, then I would have accepted your help, because my daughter's life is worth more than my pride." Richard nodded, finally understanding Deborah's wisdom. But deep down, she continued. "I think you knew I would end up accepting. That's why you didn't give up." "Perhaps." "Definitely." In the following months, everyone's life took a new direction. Deborah excelled so much in her administrative work that Richard promoted her to manager of special projects. She developed a support program for employees in emergency situations, ensuring that others wouldn't go through the same situation she had. Emma recovered completely and returned to school. She was one of the best students in her class and always talked about her friend Lily to her classmates. Lily was completely changed after the experience. The spoiled girl who used to cry for every toy had become a caring and determined young woman. She and Emma became inseparable, spending every weekend together. Catherine, who had initially resisted the girl's friendship, ended up giving in when she saw her daughter's positive transformation. "You were right," she admitted to Richard. "Lily learned more about life in these few months than I managed to teach her in 8 years." Children surprise us when we give them the chance to show their true nature. Just like Deborah. Just like Deborah. Richard had changed too. The company had implemented more humane policies, like more comprehensive health plans, social assistance programs, and an emergency fund for employees in need. The employees began to see Richard not just as a boss, but as someone who genuinely cared about their well-being. The pink bicycle, which had started this whole transformation, was framed and hung on the wall of Richard's office. A small plaque read, "Sometimes the smallest gestures have the greatest value." A year later, Deborah received an unexpected offer. A large multinational company had heard about her work and wanted to hire her as Director of Human Resources, with a salary 3 times higher than what she was making. She discussed the opportunity with Richard. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, Deborah. You should take it. But what about you and the company? The company will be fine, and I'll be happy knowing you achieved more than anyone ever imagined, including myself, especially yourself." Deborah ended up accepting the offer, but not before implementing all the programs she had planned at Richard's company. At the farewell party, she gave an emotional speech. "When I started working here 16 years ago, I was just a cleaning lady. I cleaned the offices and went home. I never imagined that one day I'd be here speaking as an executive." Everyone applauded. But what struck me the most wasn't the promotion or the raise. It was learning the difference between charity and opportunity. "Mr. Harrison didn't give me money. He gave me the chance to show what I was capable of." Richard was moved. "And that made all the difference. Because when you earn something, no one can take it away from you. It's yours forever." More applause. "I want to especially thank Lily," said Deborah, looking at the girl in the front row. "Your friendship saved my daughter in a way no medicine ever could. You taught Emma to smile again." Lily blushed but smiled proudly. "And I want to thank all of you who became a family to me. I'll never forget that when I needed you most, you were here." The party went on late into the night, with stories, laughter, and a few tears. It was the end of an era, but the beginning of something new for everyone. 2 years later, Richard received a special invitation. Deborah was marrying the medical director of the hospital where Emma had been treated. They met during her hospital stay and gradually fell in love. The wedding was simple but full of love. Emma was the maid of honor, radiant in a pink dress. Lily was one of the bridesmaids, proud to see her friend so happy. During the reception, Deborah and Richard talked about the past. "Do you regret anything?" she asked. "I regret taking so long to see who you really were. And I regret being so stubborn at first." "Don't regret that. Your stubbornness is what made everything work out." "How so?" "If you had accepted my help right from the start, it would have just been another act of charity. But because you resisted, you forced me to find a better way to help, and that changed everyone's life." Deborah smiled. "So it was all part of a plan?" "No, it was all part of destiny." They toasted to life, to second chances, and to unexpected friendships. The story spread beyond New York City. Deborah was invited to give talks about dignity at work and personal triumph. Her journey from cleaner to executive inspired thousands of people across the country. Emma grew up healthy and smart. By age 12, she was already talking about becoming a doctor to help other children like her. Lily remained her best friend, and together they planned to change the world. Richard expanded his company and created a social institute that offered professional training for people in vulnerable situations. The institute's motto was, "We don't give the fish, we teach how to fish." The pink bicycle was still framed in his office, but now there were other mementos beside it. Photos of Deborah graduating in business administration, of Emma and Lily riding bikes in the park, of the wedding celebration, of the employees who earned promotions through the company's new programs. In one of those photos, Richard stood next to Deborah on her graduation day. The caption read, "Sometimes the right people come into our lives disguised as employees." 5 years after the day he handed out the credit cards to the employees, Richard organized a new year-end party. The company had grown, new employees had been hired, but the essence had changed. Instead of giving credit cards, Richard announced that each employee would receive a scholarship to train in whatever field they wanted. "We've learned that the best gift we can give someone isn't money," he said in his speech. "It's opportunity." Deborah was in the audience now as a special guest. She smiled when she heard the words she herself had taught Richard years before. "A very wise person taught me that there's a difference between charity and opportunity," Richard continued. "Charity solves an immediate problem. Opportunity transforms a life forever." Everyone applauded, but Richard wasn't finished. "That's why, in addition to the scholarships, I want to announce the creation of the Deborah Williams Professional Development Program, which will offer mentorship and training for employees who want to grow within the company." Deborah was moved to hear her name used to title the program. "This program is based on the belief that everyone has potential," Richard explained. "We just need to give the right tools and the right opportunity." After the party, Richard and Deborah talked in his office. "Thank you for this," she said, pointing to the plaque with the program's name. "Thank you for teaching me that sometimes the best way to help someone is to give them work, and for teaching me that sometimes the best way to accept help is by earning it." They laughed, remembering all the ups and downs of the journey. "Do you know what amazes me most about this whole story?" asked Richard. "What?" "That it all started with a $180 bicycle." "Actually," Deborah corrected, "it all started with your generosity in giving the cards to the employees." "No, it all started with you choosing the bicycle instead of anything else." "Why do you think that?" "Because any other employee would have spent thousands. Only you had the wisdom to buy exactly what your daughter needed at that moment. It wasn't wisdom, it was a mother's love. It's the same thing." Deborah smiled. "Maybe you're right." They stayed silent for a few minutes, looking at the pink bicycle framed on the wall. "Richard," Deborah said finally. "Yes? Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for not giving up on your principles, even when they almost cost my daughter's life, especially because of that." Deborah nodded, understanding that there was something greater in that whole story than she had initially imagined. "You know," she said, "sometimes I think if I had accepted your help right from the start, Emma would have gotten better just the same. Probably. But I wouldn't have discovered what I'm capable of. And I wouldn't have learned to be a better person. And Lily wouldn't have become the generous girl she is today. And dozens of other employees wouldn't have the opportunities they have now." They looked at each other and smiled. "So was all the stubbornness worth it?" asked Mrs. Williams. "Every single second." 6 months later, Mrs. Williams was promoted to Vice President of Human Development at the new company. Emma was in her second year of high school and remained determined to become a doctor. Lily had created a social project at school to collect toys for hospitalized children. Everyone's lives had completely changed, but the most important thing remained: the friendship that was born from the stubbornness of a mother who chose a pink bicycle for $180 when she could have had anything in the world. In later interviews, journalists always asked Mrs. Williams if she regretted not accepting Mr. Harrison's help right at the beginning. Her answer was always the same: "I don't regret it, because I discovered that the value of things isn't in the price we pay for them, but in the effort we make to achieve them. The pink bicycle is worth more to my daughter than any expensive gift, because she knows it was bought with love, not with easy money." And when they asked Mr. Harrison what he had learned from that whole experience, he replied, "I learned that sometimes the richest person is the one who knows the value of simple things. Mrs. Williams taught me that a $180 bicycle can be worth more than a credit card with no limit when it's bought for the right reasons." The story of the pink bicycle became legend at the company. New employees always heard about the woman who chose $180 instead of millions, and about how that choice changed everyone's life. But the real lesson wasn't in Mrs. Williams's choice. It was in Mr. Harrison's persistence in finding a way to help that respected her principles. It was in Lily's generosity in wanting to share everything with her friend. It was in Emma's wisdom in valuing the simple gift. It was in everyone's humility in learning from one another. Years later, when Emma graduated from medical school and opened her own clinic, she placed a small pink bicycle at the reception desk. It was the same one her mother had bought on the most difficult day of their lives. A plaque next to it said, "No matter how small your gesture of love is, what matters is that it's true." And so, the story of the pink bicycle continued to inspire people, proving that sometimes the smallest expenses have the greatest value, and that true luxury isn't about having everything, but about valuing what truly matters. End of story. What did you think of this story of overcoming and friendship? Did Mrs. Williams make the right decision by refusing help initially? Leave your opinion in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. If this story moved you, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories that touch the heart.